Alright, coming up on the end of week 5 of our quarantine here in the US. Last week I talked about Lilo and Stitch, which was one of my 2 favorite Disney movies growing up, so I figured this week I'll talk about the other one. So let's do it! Tarzan. So Tarzan is a Walt Disney animated movie, came out in June of 1999, so I was 4 years old, and I loved it so much when it came out that my mom still likes to remind me that I saw it 5 times in theaters. That is a true story. Of course, it's an adaptation of Tarzan of the Apes, the original novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs. We all know the basic gist of the story of Tarzan at this point. He's a man who was raised in the African Congo jungle by a family of gorillas. So yeah, he is Tarzan the Ape Man. Now, I watched this movie last night for the first time in at least a year, and I already knew that it would hold up, but man, oh man, this movie is so awesome! Basically, this movie follows the story of Tarzan from when he was a kid to when he's an adult. It tells the story of how Tarzan as a baby ended up in the jungle in the first place. He's found by Kala, who is a female gorilla voiced by Glenn Close. She takes this baby to raise as her own, which does not look good to Kerchak. Kerchak is the leader of this family of gorillas, and man, talk about power! He's voiced by Lance Henriksen. I don't know him for doing anything else, but it's a pretty good voice. I mean, Kerchak is a huge silverback gorilla, and when he gets mad, it is scary. But you get where he's coming from, you know? He just wants what's best for his family, so when Kala takes Tarzan in, this baby that is obviously not a gorilla, Kerchak gets trust issues. He's like, it's not our kind, how can you trust it? Kala's like, look at this baby, does it look dangerous to you? And in the end, Kerchak is like, alright, he can stay, but that doesn't make him my son. So from there, Tarzan grows up in this ape family. His friends, Turk and Tantor, voiced by Rosie O'Donnell and Wayne Knight, respectively, they're the side comedy relief characters, you know? And they are pretty funny. Especially Tantor, you know, because he's a germaphobe, he's scared of everything, whereas Turk is like, dude, you're making a bigger deal out of this in your head than it actually is. Loosen up and have fun. The fun has arrived! Thank you very much. So that's the first like half hour of the movie, you know, is Tarzan growing up in the jungle, but then at the half hour mark, other humans start visiting the jungle. And immediately Tarzan's like, whoa, wait a minute, they look like me, what? These explorers from England have come to the African Congo to study gorillas. You have Jane Porter, who's voiced by Minnie Driver, otherwise known as the girl from Good Will Hunting. Her father, Archimedes Q. Porter. And then there's Clayton, who's like this big Gaston-like dude. He's a hunter, you know, he's got his rifle, he's got his knife. We have come to study gorillas. But one of the best scenes in the movie, I mean, there are a lot of best scenes in this movie, but a good one is when Tarzan really gets to know Jane, because this is a girl he connects with on a level that he's never connected on with anyone else before. I think I said that right. And watching it now, you're like, oh man, Jane is falling hard for this guy. Which honestly, you can't blame her. I mean, Tarzan is super ripped in this movie. And from his point of view, it also makes sense because Jane in this movie is pretty hot. So the rest of the movie is him learning to be like a human and finding his place in the world. Does he belong with the humans or does he belong with his gorilla family? And it's done very, very well. I mean, this movie is chock full of just good, strong, emotional moments. I'm not gonna lie, I was tearing up quite a few times when I was watching it last night, because these emotional moments are just so well written. Like early on in the movie when he's young, he's talking to his mother, Kala, he's like, why am I so different? I don't belong here. They hate me because I'm different. Then Kala points out all the similarities between the two. She's like, I see 2 eyes, like mine. I see a nose, 2 hands, 2 heartbeats. See, we're exactly the same. I was watching that and I was like, oh man. Which echoes the scene later on when he meets Jane, and he touches his hand to hers, and you know, they're exactly the same. Great stuff, man, I'm telling you. The animation in this movie is really good too. I mean, it's the African Congo, it's gorgeous. But just the level of detail in all the trees. These tree trunks and branches are going all over the place. One of the coolest scenes animation-wise is the end of one of the songs, which I'll get to in a minute. When Tarzan's surfing on these tree branches, and he's swinging on the vines, you're like, man, I know Tarzan, but I've never seen him like this. This is Tarzan as it was meant to look like. And alright, I can't hold it in any longer. The soundtrack to this movie is my favorite Disney soundtrack of all time. Yeah, I loved it so much back then that we got it on CD, and we listened to it in the car all the time. Before I get to the songs, the score was done by Mark Mancina, who is a Disney veteran. You know, he did the score for Moana as well, which is also a heavily drum-based score. I mean, of course, this movie taking place in the African Congo, there's gonna be a lot of drums, which means if there's gonna be a lot of drums in the music in this movie, then who better to get to do the songs than a drummer? Phil Collins did the songs in this movie. If you don't know who Phil Collins is, he was the drummer for a classic rock group back in the 70s called Genesis. The lead singer of that group was Peter Gabriel, but after Peter Gabriel left that group, Phil Collins became the lead singer. And he's got a pretty good voice. So take his awesome singing voice and take his awesome drumming skills, and you got one of the best Disney soundtracks ever. Every single song in this movie is pure perfection. Put your faith in what you most believe in. 2 worlds, 1 family. Son of man, look to the sky. Lift your spirit, set it free. I would say Son of Man is my favorite, but I mean, listening to the entire soundtrack, I can't pick a favorite. They're all 10 out of 10. I mean, don't get me wrong, Lion King's got a great soundtrack, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, they're all fantastic soundtracks, but I mean, Tarzan is I can't describe it, you know? I mean, it's nostalgia at this point, and it's objective. But to me, there's just no other Disney soundtrack that I think will ever top Tarzan's. Have I said it's perfect yet? Because that's what it is. So you have great characters, great animation, great music, great emotional moments in the story. After careful consideration, I have to say Tarzan is my favorite Disney animated movie of all time. It just is what it is. And just like Lilo and Stitch, there was a franchise that came after it of direct-to-video sequels and a TV series, but I never watched those. Probably because I was too busy watching Lilo and Stitch. There was a direct-to-video sequel that pretty much served as the pilot to the TV series, and then during that TV series they came out with a sequel that takes place before the first direct-to-video sequel. In fact, I think it actually takes place during the events of the first movie. Like, it takes place entirely when he's a kid. I never watched it though. The only difference is that whereas the Lilo and Stitch series ended with a movie, I don't think the Tarzan TV series ever did. So there's one less movie in the Disney Tarzan franchise than there is in the Lilo and Stitch franchise. And I guess that kind of balances it out, you know? Like Lilo and Stitch, I watched that entire franchise and I love it all. With Tarzan, I did not watch the entire franchise, but it is my favorite Disney animated movie ever. So it's even, I guess. I don't know if Disney has plans at this point to make a live-action remake of Tarzan, and I hope to God they never do. With other Disney movies, I'm usually at least open to it. I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of curious to see what they do with Lilo and Stitch. But with Tarzan, I'm like, no, don't even bother, don't touch it. We got a live-action Tarzan movie not too long ago, and I hated it, but I guess I hated it for the wrong reasons. I was like, that's not the Tarzan I grew up with, it's nothing like Disney's Tarzan, so it sucks. And people corrected me in the comments on that video. I'm like, okay, I get that this Disney Tarzan is not a completely accurate representation of the original novels. Apparently, originally Jane is supposed to be from America, not England. So I get it, and I guess I was kind of being a little immature in that video, but I stand by my rating of it, you know, it was still a bad movie. I do like how in the Disney Tarzan movie, they kept the original yell, the Tarzan yell from the original, like, movies from the 30s. That was really cool, and sometimes the score went along with the yell. It was really cool. So in the end, if you haven't seen Disney's Tarzan by now, it's on Netflix, go watch it. Yeah, it's not on Disney Plus yet. Great characters, awesome script, beautiful animation, and my favorite Disney soundtrack ever. Like I said, this and Lilo and Stitch were my two favorite Disney movies growing up, and that Disney magic still shines today. So Tarzan, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And what was your favorite Disney movie growing up? You know, the one you watched over and over and over again as a kid to the point of annoying your parents? And how would you react if Disney decided to go ahead and make a live-action remake of this one? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe. Son of man, look to the sky, lift your spirits, set